Welcome back to Blurred Summits. Today we're going to be talking about the mind-body connection. So Abdul, let's just jump right into it here. What actually is this mind-body connection?
So the mind-body connection, if I'm not mistaken, the idea behind the mind-body connection is that our thoughts, feelings, emotions, essentially the things that come out of our mind, are directly influencing our physical bodies and our physiological response and the way that we express ourselves to the world. So when we say the mind, we're not talking about the brain particularly. Yeah. We're talking about like the consciousness, right? We're talking about the emotions, the feelings, right? All that kind of stuff directly impacts your physical body. That's a mind-body connection.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I don't think too many people really consider that when it comes to like physical sorenesses or things like that, right? Usually they'll say, okay, I'm sore, it's maybe from working out, maybe I did this thing and I hurt myself. They don't think, oh, maybe it's because I slept weird, so then my mind's not fully awake, and then all these other things are influencing it.
Yeah,
right?
like for example, a good way to think about the mind-body connection is we all know about fight or flight, right?
Yep.
So they say you're faced with some
Adversity.
big stress or some stimulus or something, adversity in your life, and you do one of two things: fight or flight. And then some people say freeze as well.
No,
right?
that's no.
But it doesn't roll off the tongue as nice, right? So fight or flight. And basically, when you're faced with this stress, you have certain thoughts, right? In your body, it starts to release hormones that enable you to fight or flight, right? And so the idea of the mind-body connection is that just like how when you're faced with the outside world, it had an impact on your internal body, it goes opposite, two-way road. What happens on your internal body can have an expression into the outside world, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of the idea.
That's pretty interesting. Wait, so how does it work going the other way, like the body to the brain?
So
touch on that a bit more?
Okay, wait, what do you mean?
Because you said the impact of what happens to your body also has an impact on your brain.
Like, so basically, like your external world, right? Whatever's happening to you from the outside impacts the inside.
Okay.
That's your fight or flight response.
Yeah.
So what happens on the inside can also impact the outside, right?
And brain to body.
Which is the brain to body.
That's
kind of the idea. It's a little bit abstract. Basically, another way that you can think about it is right before an exam, you're walking into an exam room, everyone is super anxious. They're super emotional, anxious. A lot of people say that right before they walk into their exam, their stomach starts hurting them, right? Right, all of a sudden, their stomach starts hurting them. They get like massive headaches, stuff like this, right? So this is a proof that your emotions and your thoughts can have a direct impact on your literal body.
Yeah.
Right? So your thoughts about, okay, this is going to be a hard exam, I'm worried about this exam, this kind of stuff, ends up causing your stomach to hurt.
Like nerves causing an unsteady stomach and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So that's like a good way to think about it. And this kind of takes a little bit step further, saying that not only can these thoughts cause your stomach to hurt, these thoughts can cause disease in you. Right?
It just kind of makes yourself weaker.
It can,
more susceptible to
it can make you weaker and stuff like that. And there is a ton of evidence to show that high levels of stress, which can be caused by these thoughts and these emotions, actually suppress your immune system. So it suppresses your immune system. It opens you up more to illness and sickness and disease.
I think we have kind of touched on that in some episodes in the past where like if you're not in the best mental state, your physical state also does depreciate.
Exactly.
But yeah, I guess now I'll just go in depth with all this stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of one of the ways the mind-body connection kind of takes it a step further. And that step further is where maybe there isn't as much scientific evidence to back it. Right? Like we know for certain stress decreases your immune system. But can bad thoughts cause cancer? It's a different question. It's a tough question, right?
What is your... Yes? No?
My initial feeling is that yes.
Okay.
Right? My initial feeling is yes because of a couple of reasons. First of all, like when we look at the world around us now, our biggest problem is internal, not external. So like 200 years ago, a lot of the problems were external.
200 years ago.
Yeah, like 200 years ago, right? Okay, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, who cares? But, you know, a while ago,
Yeah.
it used to be external. You needed to worry about the food that's going to be on your plate. Do I have a safe place to stay at night? This kind of stuff. Now, most of us don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So all of our problems, they don't just disappear. They start going inside. So now our mental states are a lot more exemplified. That's why we see higher rates of anxiety and depression than we used to see, you know, back in the day.
Yeah.
Right? And we haven't done enough testing to see what does that actually mean. But my feeling is that it has a lot of it'll cause a lot of problems internally as well.
That
So
Abdul
it's
feeling
sickness
guarantee
and
right there.
I say it's a guarantee. What can I say, right? So that's just my feeling. I don't know. And I've seen a lot about like stress and like exercise, which kind of opposes stress. And it seems like the evidence is overwhelmingly pushing towards that conclusion.
Well,
I suppose time will tell.
Even if you look at it from the other way, like even if say it doesn't do these things, but say you're working out or you're doing these positive mental practices, what's the negative part of that?
Right.
Like worst case scenario, you feel better about yourself, and maybe you then don't get these sickness. Maybe say you still get these sick. Who cares? All these other years you're doing all these good things, right? Positive outcomes.
And truth be told, so the mind-body connection, it's existed for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah.
Especially in like eastern parts of Asia and stuff like that. It's been lost in more traditional Western medicine. But here's an interesting thought puzzle, is that our minds have been pretty much the same for the past 2,000 years or more.
That makes sense.
Like biologically as humans, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So our IQs have been the same. So why, for hundreds of years, was the mind-body connection such a big thing? Were they just dumb back then?
I mean,
Is that what
different
we're saying?
science. That's
Right? Like, so go ahead.
Different science.
Maybe different science, or maybe we've just been negligent of it, right? We haven't put in the time and the
Potentially.
resources into it, right?
It's potential.
Potential. Time will tell.
You better do some research on that.
Yeah. So let's hop into 5 ways that we can improve our mind-body connection, or not necessarily improve it, because the mind-body connection is something that we all have within us, whether we like it or not, but how to leverage it, right? How to leverage it so that we can make benefit of it and it's actually positive in our lives rather than something that's negative.
Yeah, so what are some of these positive outcomes that we could get from this stuff then? Or will you touch on that in a bit? Will it be, like, say, better physical attributes, better grades on tests? What is it? What are kind of the positives to then doing this?
Well, the positives is you'll be able to, from like a sickness perspective, you won't get sick as much.
In theory.
So that's the thing, right? It's the point of the mind-body connection. Truthfully, it's a health perspective, right?
Okay.
It's that if your mind-body connection is synced up, you're good to go, you're aligned, then you won't be getting sick as much. You'll be able to avoid some of these diseases, right? That's kind of the idea that it comes from.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these tips will probably help you in things like performance and confidence and all that other good stuff. But I think the mind-body connection is more of a health thing than anything. Yeah.
For sure.
So tip number 1 is to become more aware. So obviously when we're talking about the mind-body connection, a lot of it, you know, if you kind of caught on to the pattern, is that awareness about your mind-body connection is the easiest way to leverage it. So right before an exam, if you always notice that your stomach starts hurting, pay attention to other things. What are the thoughts that are coming into your head right before an exam, right?
Yeah.
Where are the points of tension in your body right before an exam? How are you feeling right before an exam? And if you're aware and you have this kind of awareness, then the theory is that you can oppose those thoughts rather than opposing your stomach.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Like a lot of the times my stomach hurts.
You try to settle your stomach rather than
You pop
settle
with
your
them
thoughts.
Pepto-Bismols, right?
I mean, I don't. Is that your go-to?
I've never had Pepto-Bismol, but
Neither
I don't
have
know.
I.
That just seems like something that people do, right? Like
You said that like I do that all the time.
right? That's
But yeah, just people like to settle the physical ailments rather than the mental ailments.
exactly. So it's kind of treating that Band-Aid.
It's a half fix, whereas if you fix the mental side of it, it'll be a full fix.
Exactly, right? That's the
Yeah.
root cause. You're touching into the root cause. So
Yeah.
pay attention and being really aware that's the thing. With the mind-body connection, half of it is the mind. So you can't neglect half the equation, or else you're going to be running around. And so this is actually one of the criticisms. People who are advocates for the mind-body connection say that Western medicine has been too focused on the body, and they've neglected the mind, right? Yeah. Now, maybe some Eastern philosophies have been too much on the mind and have neglected the body. But there seems to be this balance that we kind of want to reach for it, and then that's kind of the idea behind the awareness.
Got it. Right? Well, I think when there's a lot of these mental ailments, they do the body part to try and help it, right? Yeah. But that's the effect. The cause is the mental stuff. So they leave the cause, so it just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah. Like that's one of the criticisms of like modern day psychiatry, which is if you have depression or anxiety, they'll just give you medication to treat the symptoms, but you don't actually treat the root causes. And so things like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a part of mind-body connection, that's kind of where it got its foundations from. Yeah. Cognitive behavioral therapy has been super popular in recent years and growing with clinical psychology.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. That's how they're trying to treat things like depression and anxiety is through that kind of stuff. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Number 2 is to physically walk away. So if there are points when you're realizing, okay, let's say we'll stick with the exam example because it's real simple. So you're going to your exam room, you're standing outside the exam room, but your stomach's hurting you. It's to physically step away from the environment.
Well, it's kind of hard to do during a test.
Well, during a test, it's a little bit hard to do. But, if you can, like right before the exam, step outside the building.
Just don't be in the same room as it.
Don't be in the same room as everyone else, right? And the reason for that is that if we go to the fight or flight response, back at the start of the episode, and kind of talking about it, if you see a bear running towards you, you can't help but have that fight or flight response. Same thing. If you're in that standing right outside the exam room, your body can't help but have the fight or flight response. If you physically walk away, then it's easier for your body to realize, okay, this is something that is not actually dangerous to me. I don't need to be having my stomach hurt or have my palms sweating and my eyes dilated, right?
Yeah.
So tip number 3 is to laugh. So laughter has been shown to help build up your immune system, to boost your mood, obviously, and also to stimulate your muscles, right? So all your kinds of muscles, not just your skeletal muscles like your biceps, but your heart muscles, your lung muscles, all the smooth muscles inside of your body as well. Yeah. Which it's really nice because when you stimulate it, you stimulate the blood flow as well. And it just makes you feel better, right? You have better circulation all around.
Well, yeah, I think those first 2 are pretty black and white and obvious that people can do. This laughter one, it gets kind of, does it actually do this? I don't know. Maybe because sometimes it's just a temporary fix, right?
It could just be a temporary fix. Yeah. And I think it is almost a temporary fix. But if you have a temporary fix become a habit, like you just have a habit of laughing, then I don't know. I think this is the best tip on the list. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. So we all know you like to just laugh at your own jokes out of the blue. So
yeah, well, exactly. So this is proof that what I'm doing is right. That's why I put it on this list. And so the idea is that if you can impact and make what's happening inside your body good, then like we said, the mind-body connection is a 2-way road. It'll help your thoughts and your emotions and your consciousness also be good. Yeah. Right? So 2-way road with that. Tip number 4 is to find meaning on the path that you're on. Right?
This seems quite ambiguous.
This seems very ambiguous. So let me explain. This comes directly from Dr. Jordan Peterson.
Of course.
Yes. Amazing speaker.
Maybe one day he'll come on.
Amazing. Anyways, so Dr. Jordan Peterson basically said, you want to have meaning in your life. You want to have a meaningful life. He said, you don't necessarily want to have a happy life, right? So he said, life it's filled with a lot of bad things. Yeah. So if you aim for consistent happiness and happiness,
got it.
Right? Yeah. It's like, if happiness enters your life, great, right? But that shouldn't be the thing that you're striving after, to always be happy. Because if you do, then it's an aim that you can never achieve, right? By the nature of how life is set up. So he said a better strategy is to aim for something that's meaningful. Because if you're aiming for something that's meaningful, even when you're having the bad days, when it's hard for you to be happy, then you can still do some good stuff with your life.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't go to waste.
Adds value no matter what.
Adds value no matter what. So he said to find meaning in your life, you need to do two things. First, you need to pick your sacrifice. He said, there's always going to be sacrifices that we need to make in our life, whether we like it or not. There's no such thing as a person who can have everything and sacrifice nothing.
Yeah.
So if sacrifice is inevitable, either you choose it or the world will choose it for you, right?
Okay, yeah.
And you do not want the world to choose it for you, or you'll become resentful of the world.
Yeah.
So he said, choose your own sacrifice. If you choose your own sacrifice, then you can fight your own battle, right? You can have your own aim. You can have meaning in your life, and that's how you can derive meaning from sacrificing. He said, number two, it's to face suffering head on, right? So he said, suffering is going to come into your life. You can either wait for it to come and hit you in the face and throw you down this big spiral, or you can face it, right? And although it might beat you up real good, right? It's that if you do that and you face basically difficult things and you do difficult things with your life, then you will be able to find meaning within those difficult things.
Okay.
So, what does this have to do with the mind-body connection? There is I'm going to take a step back a second, so because I need this one point. It helps explain the mind-body connection. So, our minds are split up into two hemispheres.
Yes.
Symbolically, some people say that this is significant. Why? Because the right hemisphere of our mind is the creative hemisphere. The left hemisphere of our mind is the order hemisphere. It's the logical hemisphere. It's the math hemisphere, right? But they're equally sized and they're well connected. So symbolically, this means that in our life, we need to have equal creativity and order.
Okay.
Equal chaos and calm, right? So there needs to be a yin and a yang, so to speak.
Well, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Right?
I would consider it chaos and calm, the two. But
right? No, like creativity is chaos, right? And order it's methodical, it's logical, it makes sense. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, when you need both of these balances, you need to have the sacrifice and the suffering, right? Which take on both of these roles. If you can decide to have both of these things, then your mind can be at ease. And if your mind can be at ease, so can your body. And that's where the mind-body connection comes into play. Bam!
You just really wanted to get Jordan Peterson in this, eh?
Yes, I did. I
still think his sacrifice thing isn't right, though, but I think
What do
if
you
you
mean?
pick the one thing that you will not sacrifice and then everything else is okay, you pick that one non-deal breaker. I think it's inversed, personally. But Peterson sees big deal, but...
Yeah.
You pick the unbreakable, everything else can kind of come and go, versus the other way.
Yeah, I think both things are pretty much... I think it's arguing the same point, almost.
It's getting the same outcome.
I think it's getting the same outcome, so it's a different way to look at it for sure. But yeah, that's the idea. It's that a lot of the times, if people are having a lot of disconnect between their mind and their body, it's because they're on the wrong path, right? They're not aligned with their purpose and their mission. They're not aligned with who they are as an individual, and so they feel lost.
Okay. Yeah, I think that does make sense. It's pretty logical. Yeah.
And last but not least is to try different things like meditation, yoga, and Tai Chi. So these, because, like we said, the mind-body connection has its origins in a lot of Eastern philosophies from hundreds of years back.
Yeah.
And, these people, they have come up with solutions for it, such as meditation and Tai Chi and yoga. So, if it worked for them, odds are it's going to work for us too. It had, and the evidence also shows that as well, right? So there's a lot of
even
evidence
though it's
back
different cultures and different time periods and stuff, it still translates.
it still translates, right?
Okay.
The industry of mindfulness and meditation has been on the boom over the past 10 years. In my personal opinion, it's going to continue to grow, right? I think it's going to continue to grow for sure. So there's a bunch of different ones like mindfulness-based stress reduction. You can do primordial sound meditation, Zen meditation, Kundalini yoga.
What is that?
I have no idea. I have no idea what that is, right? But basically, there is a million ways to do meditation, right? There's a million ways to do meditation and yoga and Tai Chi and all this stuff. The point isn't one is right and one is wrong. It's just do any.
Do something.
Do something, right?
Action's better than inaction.
Action is better than inaction. And you have to remember to do it for long term instead of short term, right? It's kind of like working out. You know, you can't go to the gym one day and then expect to have big changes. It's the same thing with meditation. A lot of people meditate one time and they want to feel amazing. And odds are the first time you're going to feel amazing. Probably the first 5 times you meditate, you're going to feel great. But then from the 15th to the 50th time that you meditate, you're going to feel kind of, whatever, right? But it's one of those things where if you consistently do it, the gain is at the reward is at the end, not in the middle. So if you stop before, you get to the end, then you won't have any of the benefit. Okay. You have some of the benefit, but so just staying consistent with it and doing whatever you possibly can to do it. I think that's a pretty good plan.
Yeah. I think all these things definitely don't hurt to do, right? Like, oh no, it's a bad thing to laugh. It's a bad thing to meditate. No.
It's a terrible thing to laugh. So, and so who knows? Maybe we'll look back at this episode 10 years from now when they find out the mind-body connection is absolute bogus. And then we'll say, oh, yikes, should not have put that on the internet. But until then, I think that the future will prove us right. And I suppose time will tell.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you found any of the information we shared helpful, think of one friend who could benefit from the information. Be sure to share this podcast with them. You can catch the full video podcast on YouTube. The full audio podcast is out on all platforms, including Amazon Music, apparently. And be sure to follow us on Instagram for more content. Thank you.